right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's webinar, Defending Your Wi-Fi Airspace Against Threats, Tips You Need to Know. My name is Jenna Kadich. I'm a Product Marketing Specialist at WatchGuard. And today I'm joined by Ryan Orsi, Director of Strategic Alliances at WatchGuard. So guys, no one can deny the sort of omnipresence of Wi-Fi and the benefits it provides to businesses that offer it. With that being said, it is critical to stay mindful of the wireless threats and challenges that are emerging every day. So we wanted to take some time today to look at those challenges, but more importantly, we wanted to look at what you can do to stay ahead of them. Guys, if a question comes up at any point, please be sure to enter it into your questions box on the control panel, and we'll be sure to look at it at the end of Ryan's presentation. With that said, Ryan, I will hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Jenna, and thank you, everyone, for joining today. Like Jenna mentioned, I'm the Director of Strategic Alliances and in the product management team responsible for Wi-Fi at WatchGuard. So what I'd like to talk about today is a topic that is very, very important to all of us. We consume it and we experience it every day in our daily lives. It's the presence of Wi-Fi, both in guest public hotspots as well as corporate Wi-Fi in your businesses. And there's specific Wi-Fi threats that I'd like to cover in this presentation and also share some information. Hopefully it'll be informative and give you some kind of insights that might not be available right now. So this is a kind of an exciting topic, and to kick things off, what I'd like to introduce first as the first topic is just the growth that's happening in the Wi-Fi world. It's kind of important to understand, is this an isolated, kind of wireless threat that we're talking about, or is this widespread? And I would definitely say it's the latter. This is widespread. So if we just take a look at the number of public Wi-Fi hotspots, so these are your airports, your coffee shops, your retail outlets that offer the free and open public Wi-Fi that we often enjoy moving around the store or the airport. Just last year, the number of public Wi-Fi hotspots, and it's a fairly easy number to track, was around 64 million. In a short, what are we at here, less than 4 years from now, that number is going to raise to 432 million public Wi-Fi hotspots. And there's a number of reasons why that number is growing so high. For one, for customer satisfaction, for guests, repeat loyalty to kind of pull people back into that business. Offering public Wi-Fi is a very attractive thing to do. A number of connected things. The graphic in the middle is showing us that this is the IoT. These are your watches, your IP cameras for your house, or your doorbell that lets you know via video when someone's there. Basically anything with an IP address and a Wi-Fi connection. The number of those devices is just growing exponentially. So we're around 5 billion devices connected via Wi-Fi last year. That's going to grow to over 20 billion in just a couple of years later in 2020. And again, the predominant way these devices are connecting is through Wi-Fi. And the last data point we have on the right here is really the portion of internet traffic moving globally on Wi-Fi versus any other medium, such as on a cable, over a wire, or through cellular. So last year, 48% of all the internet traffic was actually coming over a Wi-Fi network. That's actually going to grow to be 66% around 2020. And the reason, I get a lot of questions when I give presentations like this is, why isn't that, staying flat, or why isn't it going down? Because aren't we having more 4G LTE, 5G LTE? And the reason for that is the cell carriers. These are your large cellular providers. They have invested many, many dollars into private licensed cellular spectrum frequencies. And Mother Nature only produces so many frequencies to use, and they're quite expensive. So the cellular carriers are in an interesting spot in their growth curve right now, where they're sort of running out of bandwidth. They're running out of capacity to serve all of us, the consumers of cellular data networks and cellular voice networks. So the cell carriers are actually offloading some of their traffic onto Wi-Fi networks because it's it's open, unlicensed spectrum that any provider can use if you pass the certification tests. So if you look into your smartphone, for example, that you might be dialing in on today, there's probably things like Wi-Fi calling or Wi-Fi roaming actually built into the phone. And what that means is when you're, say, in the back of a taxi joining a webinar just like this, and you're doing that over your cellular data connection, when you walk into, say, the shopping mall, it's going to automatically switch your connection from cellular over to Wi-Fi. And this type of growth is really driving the adoption of Wi-Fi worldwide. Now, with that said, again, the topic of this webinar is related to what are the Wi-Fi specific risks that we need to be concerned about today, and is there anything that can be done about it? So if I drill into one topic here, this would be your public hotspot security risks. So this is the open SSIDs. There's no password assigned to this. This is walking into the airport or the cafe or the restaurant. And what's kind of a alarming fact is Wi-Fi has been around since the early 2000s. So we're well over 15 years of Wi-Fi being in the mass market, and still, just this past month, you see news headlines like this that we've kind of put here in the slide. That this is from a reputable source, Fox News, and I think another outlet picked it up. But they're talking about going to the local coffee shop and using unsecured Wi-Fi to conduct banking business as very bad habits that people do. And it's true. Why is it that going into a public hotspot and tethering to it is considered a risky thing to do? We're 15 years into Wi-Fi. Why do we have to take this risk to stay connected? And that's really what I'll hopefully paint the picture of exactly what those risks are and what can be done about them. Now, the other type of Wi-Fi that exists in the world, right, is corporate Wi-Fi. So this is in the office, in the workplace, Wi-Fi that is definitely secured with encryption. There's passphrases or certificates using 8021X enterprise authentication. But there's specific risks that occur in that environment which are fairly difficult to avoid. If I were to ask everyone to raise their hand right now about how many of you, myself included, have ever turned the hotspot on your phone and tethered your laptop to it in order to get around some network firewall policy, maybe blocking access to some website or some application that you really want access to while you're in the office, it's very simple just to turn the Wi-Fi hotspot on your phone and tether your laptop to it to go out over to the internet. And you've completely bypassed network firewall security measures, but you are still connected to the corporate network. So that's quite a big security risk for people to actually go around the network firewall policy, security protection that's in place in that business, potentially grabbing files and malware and things that can then come into the corporate environment and spread horizontally from that point. The other bullet point here is about employees bringing unauthorized access points into the network. So this has to do with the concept of rogue access points. What this means is that employees may be getting fed up with the Wi-Fi signal strength in their particular corner of the building, or they're upset about the speed of the network, and they'll actually bring in some kind of either LTE hotspot device or even just an access point or router purchased from their local electronics store, and they'll actually plug that into the corporate network and then tether their tablet and their phones directly to it. They'll have a faster, better experience for them, but that also completely bypasses network security policy. And that particular access point or router that they brought into the network would be considered rogue, meaning it's not meant to be there. It's not something that we expect to be managed on that network. And to further drill into this concept, there is something called BYON, of course a little bit of a play on BYOD, which is bring your own device. BYON is a concept of bring your own network. And what this means is it's very tightly coupled to bring your own device. But we're talking about employees or people in general being able to nowadays turn on a hotspot through their phone or through their cellular-enabled tablet, for example. Now they've created a whole other network. It's not just a device coming into a corporate environment. It's actually brand new networks coming into a corporate environment. And what the market is saying is this is going to happen. So IT administrators in different businesses and different verticals need to be aware of it, that new networks will come into their environment. How do they deal with that? How do they maintain security policy and consistency and visibility into all that traffic and to be able to see what's going on so they could remain compliant, they could remain locked and secured as a corporate network? Now, this is another bullet point here, just to mention for the audience about rogue access points. So, why both hackers and your employees are risky. So, this is a blog I recommend everyone checking out on your own time here. That kind of contrasts, hackers can be opportunistic or very targeted. Employees, they may not be trying to be malicious, but they're very risky when it comes to Wi-Fi. Again, it's that same example of an employee bringing in some kind of a router or access point or other LTE-enabled device that has a Wi-Fi hotspot attached to it, and it can really wreak havoc for networks out there and IT administrators. Another fact to bring into the table here, I'm not sure if everyone's aware, last year there was a very, very kind of big unveiling news story about how very targeted and experienced hackers were able to get into a car, a certain brand of automobile, and they got into that car remotely, wirelessly, and they were able to take control of the brakes, of the steering wheel, of the turn signals, and it was something that was very well covered last year. And we would anticipate that car manufacturers would have patched all those vulnerabilities. However, just this year, another vulnerability was found and it was actually an attack via Wi-Fi. And what this is bringing to light is that even Wi-Fi hotspots inside of automobiles that are even protected by a pre-shared key, so this is actually an SSID that's encrypted, can be cracked. Nowadays, the amount of computing power that's available makes it much more feasible to be able to intercept the handshake exchange of that WPA2 passphrase, for example, which is an encrypted handshake, and actually decrypt that using GPUs or graphical processing units, which can be easily spun up inside of a cloud environment. So basically, these attackers, which are white hat hackers, these are the good guys proving that there's a vulnerability out there, were able to prove that even SSIDs with passphrases and encryption assigned can easily be cracked nowadays. Even Tesla also has been exposed via Wi-Fi. If you haven't read the news about this, it's actually pretty interesting to read. We should all be aware of it. But the inside of this car, the Tesla cars, are Wi-Fi hotspots. So the internet connectivity goes via cellular, and inside the car you have a nice convenient Wi-Fi hotspot for all of your tablets or phones, for example. The attackers figured out that they could remotely make that hotspot display a certain splash page. And that could then lead to other vulnerabilities and other exploits that actually gave the attackers remote control over the brake system of the Tesla cars. Now, that's since been patched. The problem's taken care of. But again, Wi-Fi was one of the predominant ways into these systems, which can result in some pretty serious exposure. Now, one thing I typically get asked when I'm doing these presentations is the news. We're talking the nightly news, the front headlines, the big headlines, the things that break news worldwide. You typically don't see, hey, Wi-Fi attack, detected in airport here, or coffee shop there, or retail environment here. You don't typically hear about that in the major headlines. What you hear about is the end. You don't hear about the means to the end. You really hear about that Yahoo lost 500 million, accounts, or LinkedIn got attacked, or credit cards were stolen from a certain retailer. Guaranteed, Wi-Fi was most likely involved at intercepting credentials of maybe employees with high-level access into those networks, and they're intercepted. The reason why you don't hear about these Wi-Fi attacks inside of the nightly news has to do with Wi-Fi attacks are very low level. It means that this is an attack not happening from a software application point of view. It's actually happening between client and radio. And one of my friends, Rick Farina, is the director of R&D at the Pony Express. If you're not familiar with the Pony Express, maybe you've ever watched the show Mr. Robot, and they do use one of his products. It's called the Pwn phone. It's basically a hacking tool. It's the mobile phone that's been built specifically for the good hackers to go kind of penetration test a network to see if they can get in. And this is what he's telling me, is that those Wi-Fi attacks are definitely part of the puzzle piece, the means to the ultimate end, which is to extract sensitive data. Now, to really hone in on, what are the top threats to wireless networks, there's quite a few, so I'll take them kind of one by one here. The number one, probably more obvious type of threat to a Wi-Fi network has to do with password or passphrase cracking. Now, I hope no one on the webinar is using WEP encryption or WEP. That's been proven to be easily crackable in seconds, so please don't be using that. Even the WPA2 pre-shared keys, as you just saw in the previous news article, can also be decrypted. Rogue access points and what are called rogue clients. So what this has to do with is an access point which is not meant to be there. Say it's the employee bringing that consumer router into the network and plugging it in, and then connecting, say, their smartphone to that access point. Both would be considered rogue. This is an access point that was not meant to be there, and the client has connected to it, so now that client is considered rogue as well, even though it may be a corporate-owned mobile device. Now, planting malware has to do with the next step that an attacker would take. If they can get into a system via Wi-Fi, a computer system, even an IoT device, such as a DVR machine, what you record your videos on for TV, or even an IP camera, those are computers. They run Linux, they run Windows, they run some version of an operating system with a command terminal that the attacker, while they're in the range of Wi-Fi, can be deploying a backdoor into. So this is so that the attacker can get back to that network from anywhere in the world. It's a very popular thing to do in the hacking community. Eavesdropping, that's the concept of, if you can picture, what's quote-unquote, if you could see me, I'm doing air quotes right now, the script kiddie. These are a type of attack or a threat where people are just sniffing the air to see something interesting. Maybe what they're looking for are, certain credentials being typed into Yahoo authentication servers, and they're looking for specific access to that company. They'll eavesdrop first just to kind of sniff the air and sniff the packets in the air before they start to do anything else. Data theft is probably self-explanatory, but if you can imagine, even on a Wi-Fi network, especially in healthcare, personally identifiable information on healthcare records is very, very valuable to the dark market. Even credit card numbers are a lot less valuable than, say, your PII or personally identifiable information from a healthcare organization, which might have your height and your weight and your date of birth and further information that they can use to sell your identity online. So data theft, quite a big security risk for wireless networks. Inappropriate and illegal usage, it kind of varies country by country. In Europe, this is beginning to take off quite rapidly. But for example, businesses offering public hotspots are actually, in certain cases, held liable to the content that the public is viewing or utilizing that public hotspot for. So, for example, the internet service provider, if they're detecting a lot of peer-to-peer traffic, might look into exactly what kind of files are being transmitted from that business's public Wi-Fi hotspot. And if it's found to be copyrighted movie material, for example, then that business has maybe 1 or 2, 3 warnings before some action is taken against them, which could lead to even shutting down the internet connection. And that could really be disruptive for a business. Bad neighbors. So this is a concept where the victim is not a bad person, right? The victim has had their mobile phone or their tablets or their laptop. It is infected by some other way. Maybe it was lent out to your teenage son or daughter over the weekend, and they downloaded some malicious application that looked like it was a new game, and it's actually a piece of malware. Then you bring your phone back into the corporate environment. The first thing that piece of malware is trying to do is to replicate itself. to try to create, and take remote control over other devices on that network. So a bad neighbor is an infected device looking to replicate itself. A man-in-the-middle attack, or MIM, it's been around for quite some time, but this is actually one of the very first things a Wi-Fi attacker would do. Is there's very easy to find devices, which I'll let you search on the internet on your own, that you can buy for very, very few dollars. And basically, you can do a man-in-the-middle attack with very little knowledge of hacking. There's over 200,000 how-to videos on on YouTube explaining this. And what this concept is most all of our phones and tablets and laptops, when they've connected to a Wi-Fi network, they're configured to remember that Wi-Fi network, so the next time you come into that business or that store, it automatically connects. And as we walk around in the world with our phones in our pockets, and our phones are broadcasting, looking for all of these previously connected Wi-Fi networks. The man-in-the-middle attack utilizes something called a karma attack in most modern cases, and it'll actually, this access point device, will say, oh, you're looking for your home SSID. Well, guess what? I have your home SSID, and your phone, even though it's in your pocket and you didn't do anything, it will actually automatically connect to this access point. That access point then is connected to the internet. So when you take your phone out and you're browsing your email or logging into your social media account, you think you're just going right to the internet because you think that's the way it views on your phone. You're actually going through this man-in-the-middle first, kind of like a proxy between you and the actual internet. And now that person can intercept all of your traffic. A wireless denial of service attack. We saw something similar just earlier in the week about a distributed denial of service attack, a little bit different. That led to the outage of several very major internet services such as Netflix and Twitter. What a wireless denial of service attack is kind of a similar concept, except it occurs only over a Wi-Fi network. It has the same intention, though. The intention is flooding that Wi-Fi network with traffic so that it actually renders it useless. Now, this could be, and most of the time it's just about the goal is to create havoc. It's to hurt or damage the business from doing operations. And it is a wireless security threat to be aware of. Masquerading attacks, what this means is in many cases, some Wi-Fi networks have been configured to actually have the MAC addresses of each access point be on some kind of a whitelist or a known good list. Attackers can figure out these MAC addresses, and they can try to create their own rogue access point, and they'll try to spoof the MAC address of their access point to match one of the known good access points so that your network perceives it as good, and then they can have more flexibility and more access to your network. A misconfigured access point, it's kind of a broad term, I understand that, but what this refers to is if you look at a Wi-Fi network as a whole, most likely there's a standard security policy, level of encryption, VLAN tagging, routing and networking, firmware level. If any of those pieces are slightly off for one or two particular access points, those are considered misconfigured access points. It could be human error, it could be a software bug, whatever it is. That means that access point does not follow the overall Wi-Fi policy, and it could be a vulnerability into your network that someone could exploit. So sometimes what I get is the next question, and I've got the slide here appropriately designed, right? Didn't we solve these wireless problems already? That's usually what I get, and I'll kind of, if for those on the webinar not familiar, this is a great piece to understand here. But there is something that exists since the early 2000s called Wireless Intrusion Detection Systems, or WIDS. What this is it's a software algorithm that utilizes access points, so Wi-Fi access points, that just scans the air. Its whole purpose in life is to scan the air, looking for all those wireless threats that I just laid out on the slide before this. And it doesn't take any action other than alerting somebody with like an event log. So if you can imagine, wireless intrusion detection scans the air, it finds somebody trying to do a man-in-the-middle attack or a rogue access point, and it's going to create like a log entry that a human then has to go look at, sift through, and they have to go figure out if that log entry is actually, if it's a false positive, if it's a false negative, and they still have no idea where the rogue access point or the man-in-the-middle attack was occurring physically. It could be on the third floor, it could be in the coffee shop next door. They don't really know where it's located. Several years later, this is again, earlier 2000s, the concept was moved forward a bit, and now it was called wireless intrusion prevention. And I've highlighted the prevention in red here because this is known as WIPS. And what this means is after the threat's been detected, let's shut that threat down automatically. So if there's a man-in-the-middle attack trying to occur, if there's someone trying to do a wireless denial of service attack, let's actually prevent that from occurring over the air wirelessly, and also through the network, through the actual cable. And this is a great system to utilize to be able to stop and block all these attempts. Now it's important, and I'll get to that in a second. The way they're implemented is very, very different. Most of the time, turning on prevention is something people don't do, and I'll explain that in just the next second. So really, the answer to the question, didn't we already solve these wireless threats? It depends on who you ask. So there's a company called TechTarget you're probably familiar with. They evaluated all WIPS, or wireless intrusion prevention systems, on the marketplace just recently, and their findings was that any WIPS system is going to require, and I've highlighted things in red here for a reason, constant monitoring, so administrators can respond, and they can frequently tune and customize the wireless IPS attack signatures and the rules, and this is really, really critically important to minimize false positives and negatives. And I'll get to that point about false positives. Imagine if your WIPS system accidentally classifies like the hospital's Wi-Fi next door as rogue, and it shuts it down. The Wi-Fi VoIP phones that the nursing staff is using would become useless. That could be a really big risk, and it's also illegal. So their finding was that WIPS requires a lot of manual intervention, and what I call, and I don't know if they're subterranean, but I call them subterranean enterprise WIPS admins. So basically, WIPS is a type of technology that it is in the enterprise for very large organizations, but it does require a lot of manpower, a lot of employee power here. IT administrators are dedicated to sifting through these logs, trying to determine what's a false positive, a false negative, and they usually never turn on automatic prevention. So what that kind of means is, if you're not a large enterprise with many, many resources to dedicate to sitting behind computer monitors, looking at WIPS events and tweaking signatures, digital signatures, that leaves the rest of the world out. Any small to medium business, any distributed or mid-level enterprise is probably not going to have those resources to dedicate to this kind of manual process. And so there's no wireless intrusion prevention for the rest of the world. For anyone, this is kind of a self-answered question here. Something I usually ask to any IT administrator or anyone in a service provider situation, if they know what WIPS is, and you'll notice every Wi-Fi vendor on the market today, if you Google this, they will say they have WIPS. What I'll say is the question to the audience, right, is do you actually turn on automatic prevention? So if a wireless threat's detected, will the system automatically shut it down without you having to do anything? And by and large, I've asked this question just recently to hundreds and hundreds of IT service providers. The answer is no. No one really turns this on because of my friend the policeman here telling us that it is illegal to tamper with legitimate neighboring Wi-Fi networks. And it can cause business interruptions, fines, legal ramifications, and even legal law enforcement involvement. So people are not confident enough about the accuracy of classifying something as a rogue or not rogue, so they don't turn on prevention at all. So even the WIPS that's on the market today is not actually utilized. What's important to be thinking through is why is WIPS not actually utilized? So what's really important here is the concept of automatic hands-free prevention. So a WIPS system needs to be able to classify different devices as internal or authorized. Those access points are managed by the Wi-Fi controller, the Wi-Fi cloud, whatever it may be, and versus those that are neighboring. They're the coffee shop next door, the hotel next door. Those access points, the system should never touch unless they're actually launching a denial of service attack. And then what's highlighted in red here are considered rogue access points, or those that the employee brought in, or that they turned on their mobile hotspot on their phone. That's actually considered a rogue, and the system should be able to automatically prevent that with 100% accuracy without shutting down the neighboring access points. So what we've just launched recently, I'm very happy to announce. The WatchGuard Wi-Fi Cloud was launched recently. It does have what's called WatchGuard WIPS. It's a brand new way of doing WIPS with 100% accuracy on the classification that we've highlighted here. So the green access points are WatchGuard access points. That means they're managed by the Wi-Fi cloud. It's a controllerless cloud environment. They're connected to your network, and they have a certain policy set to them automatically. External access points that are blue, those are access points that we don't control. Those are the neighboring access points. We're never going to shut them down automatically unless they're launching a denial of service attack against your network. And the rogue access points are the ones that are on your network and they're not supposed to be there. Now, the way that we do WIPS is so unique. I think it's worth a small example here kind of showing exactly how this classification happens. The key to doing WIPS properly is to get this classification absolutely accurate so you don't run the risk of shutting down legitimate networks. So we utilize something called a marker packet. It's a patented approach, and it's one of the most accurate ways to do this. So what happens is each WatchGuard access point, when managed by the Wi-Fi cloud, will send down these small, very tiny broadcast packets. And it'll send this packet down the Ethernet cable that the access point's connected to. It goes into the network, into the switches. It finds other 802.11 Wi-Fi access points, and those will rebroadcast this packet because of the nature of the packet. It goes into the air, and our originating access point is looking for this little marker packet, and it's able to read and detect like the digital fingerprint of everything that it just traversed. So we'll know for absolute certainty what is actually been touched along the path here, and we'll know what's on our network and if it was intended to be there. We also do this on the wireless side. So the same access point that's sending packets down the Ethernet cable is also sending them out into the air. And they're sending them into the air to wireless clients. So we're sending them to any Wi-Fi phone or tablet or laptop that's in the air, within the range of this access point. And it's going to receive this packet because it's a standard rebroadcast packet. It's going to then go into whatever access point or router that client is connected to, and it's going to come back to us on the network cable again. And again, we're going to see this full picture of all the digital fingerprints of every device that it touches. And we'll know for certain what was meant to be on the network is authorized, and what's not meant to be there is considered rogue. And we'll also know for certain that the external access points would never have received or rebroadcasted this packet. So we'll know for certain what is a neighboring access point, and we're never going to shut that access point down. So in terms of a best practice, for organizations of really any size. So if you're a small to medium business, or you're a larger distributed enterprise, mid-enterprise, in order to accomplish what we call secure Wi-Fi, these are some tips and some best practices to be thinking about. So number one, always implement access points that have a built-in, at least a wireless intrusion detection. So that's the first layer, to be able to detect the airspace for people trying to do man-in-the-middle attacks. The only reason why public Wi-Fi hotspots are considered so unsafe to use is because bad people can come in there and sniff and intercept traffic. If you have a detection system, you're at least going to be alerted to that happening. I would say absolutely turn on automatic wireless intrusion prevention. As I mentioned, the key here that enables you to turn on automated prevention is to have a really accurate classification strategy, and that's what the Wi-Fi cloud really brings. So not only detect that there's someone in that airspace trying to intercept traffic, but prevent it automatically without having to send a human to read computer screens, sift through log files, and go comb the area physically on different floors of a building looking for some rogue access point. And really, really, really watch out for Wi-Fi access points that offer WIPS, but that have a false positive, that have false positive protection. So you want to really drill in on when you're shopping around for wireless intrusion prevention. Ask the question about false positives. Is this system able to determine 100% accurately whether it's a rogue access point or if that's an access point next door in the neighboring business? That's really important to ask that question. Of course, always use network segmentation between guest or public Wi-Fi hotspots and private networks. So especially for PCI compliance, if anybody is processing credit cards, you definitely have to have your public Wi-Fi hotspot on a completely separate network from your, say, back office or private corporate Wi-Fi. And definitely recommend, there's what we just presented here is all about Wi-Fi specific security, but all of that traffic generated on your Wi-Fi network, you could really strengthen your security posture by sending that traffic, say, through a unified threat management appliance, a device that's able to inspect via deep packet inspection for malware, for zero-day attacks, for advanced persistent threats, email spam. Put some content inspection in place right at that gateway. And of course, if this is all seeming, like you need some help, there is a very, very strong team of IT experts out there willing to give you advice about your specific vertical, your environment. I think, the community that we work with is very strong and knowledgeable there. So definitely consult an IT expert when trying to deploy this on your own. And one last kind of closing comment here. If no one has heard of this, I'm really excited about this movement. WatchGuard has recently partnered with a company called Friendly Wi-Fi. They are the world's first public Wi-Fi accreditation. What basically you're going to start to see is when you're walking by environments where children or young people would be using a Wi-Fi network, you're going to start to see this logo, and it's a stamp or seal of approval that venue, that environment, has met a minimum level of web content filtering standards. So, for example, if kids are around public Wi-Fi hotspots, a friendly Wi-Fi hotspot would be blocking pornography, sexual exploitation, extremism. Those types of sites would be actually blocked. So we work very closely with Friendly Wi-Fi, and in the United States, we work very closely with a not-for-profit organization called Enough is Enough, headed by Donna Rice Hughes. And she's been lobbying very hard to the U.S. Congress, to corporations such as McDonald's, to do the responsible thing and filter public Wi-Fi where children are present. So we're happy to support the initiative, and I definitely recommend everyone to look at friendlywifi.com for more information. And I think with that, that's all I had to present for today. Jen, are there any questions to go over?
Hey, Ryan. Yes, we do have a couple questions that come in from the audience. First up, why is WEP so easily decrypted?
So could you repeat, Jenna? You kind of broke up there. Sorry.
Why is WEP so easily decrypted?
Oh, WEP, W-E-P, is so easily decrypted because of the level of cryptography that's used in that is very, very basic. So you don't need a lot of computing power to actually crack that password. As we go, as cryptography has evolved years over years, it's gotten much stronger. It has to do with the number of bits involved in that particular encryption chain. There's fewer bits in WEP as opposed to WPA2, for example.
Gotcha. Thank you. Next question. What, in your opinion, is the next emerging wireless threat to look out for?
I would have to say, really, the threats have been around since the beginning of Wi-Fi, and they've not been solved just yet. I think that with this wireless intrusion prevention that you can turn on for automated prevention is definitely the part of the solution to this. If we look outside of Wi-Fi, I would suggest maybe doing some looking on the internet for Bluetooth exploitations. That is a fairly insecure communication protocol. So if anyone's interested, you can definitely search the web for latest Bluetooth interceptions, and you might be surprised about what you're seeing.
Okay, next question. How does WatchGuard WIPS prevent man-in-the-middle attacks?
Oh, excellent question. So I'm out here in Europe actually doing a tour showing a live Wi-Fi hack. And what I do basically is as people are coming into the room, I have my special device, my man-in-the-middle access point, and it's responding to requests from everyone's phones that are looking for the airport SSID or the coffee shop SSID, and my device is providing that SSID to them, and they're automatically connecting to it. And I'm now providing internet access to them through that. Now, what we do is we show that by enabling the automated prevention in the Wi-Fi cloud, we can actually prevent that anyone's phone connecting to this man-in-the-middle device. And we do that by sending very standard 802.11. These are IEEE standard, they're called deauthentication packets. We basically send that right to everyone's phone, and we send those right to the actual rogue access point. So we prevent both of them from ever communicating to each other, but we do not do this via radio jamming. So if you saw the large noteworthy hotel organization recently, maybe last year I should say, they got in trouble for jamming Wi-Fi signal. That is illegal. You can't jam the signal. We do it more like a surgical scalpel. We'll only shut down specific clients that are in our airspace from ever accessing that rogue access point.
Ryan, should families be just as concerned about wireless intrusion on their home networks as businesses are in theirs?
I would say if you're in in an urban environment, in a city environment, the risk is higher. The risk is higher where you have lots of foot traffic, where there's lots of SSIDs in the air. If it's a noisy environment, the risk goes up. If you're out in a more rural environments and there's not a lot of neighbors nearby, I think the risk is a lot lower. It just has to do with where you're located. But if you're in one of those busy environments, I would say yes, the risk is about the same as what it is to, say, a small business around the corner.
Ryan, we have another question about WatchGuard WIPS. Is the WIPS on WatchGuard a subscription or license in addition to the WatchGuard firewall?
Great question. So this is a big milestone for WatchGuard. The Wi-Fi cloud is actually a completely separate product from the firewalls. So what it is it's an access points with a subscription to the Wi-Fi cloud, and that provides the wireless intrusion prevention in the access points along with all the other features of the Wi-Fi cloud, like splash pages and location-based tracking of where people are.
What is the size of WatchGuard's marker packets, and where is this located in packet header?
Oh, they're very, very tiny. I think in our white paper, if you look online, I think we define exactly the size of these packets. They're a number of bytes. I'm not even sure they're in a kilobyte range right now. In terms of where they are in the packet header, I'd have to go look that up. But I think we define that all in the WIPS white paper if you search that on the WatchGuard website.
Ryan, do you need a WatchGuard firewall to use WatchGuard WIPS?
No, you don't. We would love to see you have a WatchGuard firewall, of course, for extra UTM protection. But to have WIPS, you just need the WatchGuard access points and a Wi-Fi cloud subscription.
Ryan, is Radius 802.1 more secure than WPA2? If so, how?
Okay, and this is probably a matter of opinion more than technical answer here, but I would say yes. In general, enterprise authentication via a certificate is more secure. What I mean by that is the certificate can just have more bits of encryption compared to WPA2, like you saw from that news article of the attackers figuring out that they could actually decrypt a WPA2 passphrase. It's actually pretty easy to do nowadays. You wait for someone to type in the password of the day, you intercept that information, and that gives you what you need to decrypt. So the certificate specifically doesn't let you do that, and it's more secure.
Ryan, we have an audience member who has current WatchGuard APs, AP102. Are they able to use the WatchGuard Wi-Fi cloud and able to take advantage of WIPS?
Oh, great question. Great question. So we offer a great upgrade path. The answer is no. Actually, the AP 102, 100, 200, 300, they don't have the hardware inside them. It is kind of hardware specific to run this. So we offer great several flexible choices to upgrade from those access points to what are now called the cloud-ready access points. That's the AP 120 and AP 320 are the first two that are available.
Ryan, if an organization provides Wi-Fi access to the public, is it a good practice to incorporate vulnerability scanning and review of threats?
Absolutely. I think it's responsible, and it's also, it's something that we need to be addressing. There's lots of presentations about what the threats are in today's world and cyber attacks on the rise. I think much of this is about just visibility and awareness. So if a business does offer public or guest Wi-Fi, this system has a bunch of pre-canned wireless vulnerability and wireless threats reports in there. You could definitely have a 30-day or a weekly schedule just to take a look at what has been in the airspace. Have there been any attack attempts or rogues? Because the system is meant to be fully automated and blocking things for you, but it's nice to get visibility into exactly what happened historically.
Ryan, with programs like Connectify Me or similar, what policy can be applied to limit the use of Wi-Fi during the night or times when children have to do tasks and not use the internet?
Oh, yeah, so any of these SSIDs can be scheduled, bandwidth throttled by application as well. So that's all available in the Wi-Fi clouds, and it's fairly easy to do this across multiple locations. Everything's defined by template. So if you have a specific location where business hours or school hours are different than another location, you can schedule SSIDs to turn on or off, or different bandwidth throttling policies to take effect just based off the time of day.
Can you please repeat the model of those APs that do provide WIPS?
Sure. It's the AP 120 and AP 320.
Ryan, can WatchGuard WIPS be used with non-WatchGuard APs?
Absolutely. So I think the great thing about what we have here is, suppose you have a non-WatchGuard branded access point. You can actually purchase the AP 120 or 320 and install it directly alongside the existing Wi-Fi deployment. And just with a configuration option, you make that WatchGuard access point behave as a dedicated WIPS sensor. So it's not disrupting any of the existing Wi-Fi environment. It's actually adding all the wireless intrusion prevention to the network side by side.
How do WatchGuard's wireless solutions compare with your competitors, for example, Meraki?
Great. Loaded question there. I would say, so our approach is cloud-managed Wi-Fi. Meraki's approach is also cloud-managed. Where we really differentiate on is the WIPS, the wireless intrusion prevention. The method that we use to classify devices is a lot more accurate. So we have about 100% accuracy, right, in determining if something is rogue or not rogue, and you can then use our system without an army of IT administrators to actually automate the prevention of these threats. In Meraki's Air Marshal or WIPS, they actually recommend in their white paper turning off the feature for concern about accidentally shutting down neighboring networks. I would also say, besides the security features of the Wi-Fi cloud, We have also packed in full engagement and analytics, so engagement like splash pages, logging in with social media, putting polls and videos into your splash pages, text messages and coupons, and intercepting URLs if someone's trying to price shop something from a store and see if they can get it for a lesser price online. We can intercept that, send a text message with a coupon to say, hey, customer, go to their cash register and we'll match or beat that price by 5% and try to keep that sale in the store. We also packed in location analytics. So every Wi-Fi client is being tracked, where they are, or how long they dwelled in different locations. You typically, with most competing Wi-Fi solutions, the engagement or splash page features and the analytics are actually not included with the base package. You typically have to go buy those from a third party, and that's an additional, it could be hundreds of dollars per access point per year in order to get that functionality.
Ryan, you spoke about children being around and WatchGuard being able to filter inappropriate sites. Where can I read more about this?
Two different locations. So what's being mentioned here is the Friendly Wi-Fi initiative, which we're very strong supporters of. You can go to friendlywifi.com. You can also go to watchguard.com and just search for Friendly Wi-Fi. Both the cloud managed access points from WatchGuard, they do content filtering themselves, so they are Friendly Wi-Fi compliant, as well as our Firebox firewalls. They're doing web filtering. Those are also Friendly Wi-Fi compliant.
Does WatchGuard WIPS provide specific reports of how much bandwidth per user is used based on IP address, interface, AP? Does it require a separate server to handle all the logs? If so, what technology is required?
Sounds like a question from someone who's had to deal with this in the past. No, so there's no separate server required. This is it's a SaaS service hosted by WatchGuard, so you don't have to deal with any controller hardware, any log server, any other configuration. You can access everything via RESTful API if you really want to get deep, but yes, we provide all the reports on bandwidth usage by user, access points that are most busy, MAC address, clients. There's a lot of dashboards that you can look into and customize, as well as create daily, weekly, or even monthly scheduled reports.
Another question. So does this mean that the new APs can work controllerless?
Yes, absolutely. So the AP120, AP320, when they're managed by the Wi-Fi cloud, they're controllerless. So for the technical people on the line, the control plane and the data plane, they communicate between the access points. The only communication from the cloud to the access points is management information. So that's information about what SSID to broadcast, what VLAN tag to use, but there's actually no real data traffic or control traffic going to the cloud.
Do I need to have a WatchGuard Wi-Fi controller in order to enable the automatic prevention, or can it be done in the WatchGuard firewall?
Oh, good question. So automatic wireless intrusion prevention has nothing to do with the WatchGuard firewalls. So you get the ability to turn that on with an AP120 or AP320 and a WatchGuard Wi-Fi cloud subscription. So you just have the cloud and the access points, and that's what enables you to turn on automated prevention.
I have a question here regarding your PowerPoint presentation. I want to know, quick question, are you sharing the PowerPoint with us? I can actually go in and attach this PowerPoint presentation to this the link that you use to view this webcast. So if you go back and view the webcast on demand, the PowerPoint will be available to you. So stay tuned for that later today. With WatchGuard WIPS, Ryan, if you block another AP, are there logs to show why the AP was shut down?
Oh, yes. So the question, is asking if WatchGuard WIPS is shutting down a rogue access point, will there be a detailed information about why that was actually shut down? The answer is yes. If you go to the Wi-Fi cloud, you'll see a very extensive, kind of event log, and it's built in a way that if you click on an event and the event says, this rogue access point was automatically prevented, you click it. It'll also show you all the different clients that were associated to the rogue access point, It'll show you all the SSIDs that were available at that point in time, and you'll see a full history exactly of the events that led up to that. So you do get a very good view about why the event happened.
Are the new APs PoE?
Yes, they are. They can be, the new access points, the 120 and 320, can be powered with standard PoE or PoE+.
Are there monthly fees for the fast monitoring of the AP 120, AP 320, and what are those fees, per account or per AP?
Oh yeah. So in terms of how do you purchase this, the AP 120 or 320 they can be purchased with a Wi-Fi cloud subscription as a bundle, and we sell those as either a 1-year or a 3-year subscription bundle.
Ryan, will the WatchGuard firewalls with embedded wireless support the WIPS new features?
Not at this time. If you're familiar with the WatchGuard like T series firebox or XTM series that have Wi-Fi built into them, not right now. So WIPS is not available in those models.
Regarding communication with the cloud, how much bandwidth does it use? What is the synchronization time between WatchGuard controller and the cloud?
Probably the best answer to that would be to look into our white paper on the Wi-Fi cloud. I can tell you in general, the amount of traffic going between the APs and the cloud is very, very minimal, since we're not sending any data there. So if the internet goes down, all the access points and the WIPS remains fully online. Locally, that is. So unlike if a competitor loses connectivity to the cloud, the system stops working. So it's a very, very small amount of traffic, but again, I would recommend checking the WatchGuard Wi-Fi cloud white paper to see if that information is in there.
Perfect. About authentication, does WatchGuard have a solution that allows per user onboarding and offboarding as opposed to a shared key?
Yes, actually. So with the Wi-Fi cloud, there's a concept. If you go into, and I definitely recommend you signing up for an evaluation. You go into the Wi-Fi cloud, go into a section called Engage, which is where you design your splash pages. There's an option for a guest book, and it's a self-registration system that basically you tell people, please provide me your cell phone number or your email address, and there's an authentication code they have to verify. Now they're a user account actually inside the Wi-Fi cloud, and from that point, you can track them and you can apply policy to them in the Wi-Fi cloud.
You said it's illegal to monitor other Wi-Fis, so prevention was not always done. How did you say WatchGuard is bypassing this?
Okay, so it's not illegal to monitor. Anybody can monitor for those wireless threats, and that would be your wireless intrusion detection, the WIDS. What's illegal is to shut down neighboring access points if they're not rogue. So if your WIPS system accidentally classifies the next door neighbor's access point as a rogue when it's not, you're not legally allowed to shut that down. And that's what really leads to a lot of negativity out there about WIPS. And how does WatchGuard bypass it? It's simple. We've leveraged, I think there's over 30-something patents around this method of doing WIPS. That has to do with that marker packet that I mentioned. We're the only ones that are sending out the ability to very accurately digitally fingerprint every device using this packet. It's that method, that classification method, which enables us to turn on automated prevention with no risk of accidentally shutting something down that shouldn't be.
Ryan, where can you look at WatchGuard Wi-Fi bundles or solutions for purchase?
Oh, so we have an excellent worldwide reseller channel. You could just go right to WatchGuard.com, click on Find a Reseller, and find one near you. You can also look at different online national resellers if you're in the U.S. There's a few out there. So I'd recommend first probably checking our website and do Find a Reseller right in the top of the menu bar.
Thank you, Ryan. Folks, it looks like we are coming to the end of our time for the webinar. Thank you for all of the great questions and for joining us today. If any other questions do come up, please don't hesitate to reach out to WatchGuard. Ryan, thank you so much for all of the great information and for your time today. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.